Uh, Good morning. For me, it's morning. I mean, really early morning. But I'm up and at 'em, so I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. So thank you for being here. Um, I'll begin by talking about disruption, and I think the argument I want to make is that, well, disruption has characterized the velocity and the quality and the magnitude of change in the digital age in higher learning and more broadly society. Disruption seems somehow an inadequate terminology for the ongoing elaboration of AI. AI is seen now as an existential moment for higher education, and in particular, a moment in which centuries-old forms of assessment seem quite exhausted. AI demands of higher learning a nimbleness, a commitment to a formidable project of educational reform. And such continuous revision is without a doubt the norm now and in the future. Canadian commentator, academic, and journalist Stephen Marsh provocatively argued that AI has signaled the death of the traditional form of the long essay, which is the bedrock of evaluation in the arts and humanities. And indeed, undergraduate students, for undergraduate students, AI rather unproblematically circumnavigates the demands and the conventions of the university essay by bypassing the deep dive of research engagement and the crafting of an essay built on that research. AI serves up a text on any theme with immediacy and polish, robotic as that prose might be. And Danny Delkson, another Canadian academic in the field, goes further by identifying the need to challenge and change the very purpose of education. That is, if we continue to emphasize the objective of passing over learning, then student use or misuse, as it were, of generative AI technologies is nothing more than a rational action by a rational agent. AI, without a doubt, has reintroduced us to an undeniably academic preoccupation, academic integrity. Indeed, plagiarism and other forms of academic dishonesty have long been a cause for hand-wringing distress among every teaching professional in higher learning. And this was a problem with the introduction of ChatGPT and other platforms of generative AI. An initial and clearly persistent institutional response focused on the containment of the technology over the integration of the technology, and an attempt to contain the uncontainable is inevitably a pathway to failure. So this paper, in its longer form, addresses the currents and controversies in what I call, perhaps an inelegant phrase, robotification of education. The purpose here is not to embrace or reject AI, both unviable directions and intentions. Educators are well aware of the range and diversity of perspectives around AI, from contestation to accommodation, from critical to the celebratory, from opposition to acquiescence, and more. And none of these perspectives is singular or autonomous. Instead, in the complexities of AI and its evolving relationship to education policies and frontline pedagogical philosophy and practice, education needs to resist an uncritical accommodation of ongoingly emergent AI technologies. And instead, our educational strategy and vision must be to forge capacities,
Martin,
qualities, resources, and
Martin,
assets.
Martin, sorry to interrupt you. The
Sure.
presentation is not moving. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, just to let you
This is
know.
intentional.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
My slides come with a certain infrequency on
Okay, no
purpose.
problem. No problem.
And,
Sorry.
and you will also notice that in the slides, there's probably not more than 3 words.
Okay, good. Good. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
Just checking, just
And
checking.
I'll just point out it's probably more typical of an educational philosophy approach than a
Okay, I'm sorry about
classic.
that.
No, no, it's good. I appreciate it. That's very conscientious, and I'm most
Okay,
appreciative.
thank you. Sorry.
I was left out by saying that our educational strategy and vision must be to forge capacities, qualities, resources, and assets in relation to AI that serve and not lead intervention. Here comes the first change. Brain melt. Almost 20 years ago, Nicholas Carr asked the compelling question in an off-cited article from The Atlantic, "Is Google making us stupid?" Carr's concerns with the internet were focused less on the unprecedented availability of a digital avalanche of information and more with how the very communicative form of the internet molds our sense of self and society and the priorities and assumptions that we make about the world. The consequences have been profound, both cognitive and cultural in nature. Following advances in neuroscience research, Carr offered an account of a particular neuroplasticity, how the brain changes with experience. That is, how our use of communication technologies alters our neural pathways to the extent that digital or screen addiction has become an urgent and critical malaise in contemporary society and likely for future society. In recent times, there have been a spate of studies that have asked key questions about how we perceive, engage with, and depend on AI. These questions focus on the urgencies of AI's potential impacts, and especially how AI is reshaping and diminishing human reasoning in the process of cognitive surrender. At issue is ultimately the damaging inclination to abandon critical thinking and to outsource thinking to AI technology. Well, we have been doing cognitive offloading for a rather long time. Writing, for example, standing in for memory, calculators for computation, GPS for mapping, search engines, and the like. Cognitive surrender is an entirely different process. As John Nosta contends, large LLMs go well beyond memory and navigation. Rather, they can, quote, offload the formation of thought itself, unquote. He refers to the diminution of the friction of thought, not an extension of cognition, but a replacement for cognition. What this looks like in education is that technology has bypassed the very processes that create understanding. Dialogism, the foundational principle of education since Socrates, is not even a hint in the unidirectional process of cognitive surrender as the user is passive and muted. AI dependency in the educational context is particularly problematic because it short circuits rather than strengthens cognitive activation. That is truly foundational to learning. Such technology offers an irresistible prospect for the student predisposed to using it. Instead of labor-intensive cognitive struggle, students turn to ready-to-wear solution, instantly retrievable, fluent, and perfectly adequate AI answer. It was Neil Postman who once mused on what he called the Faustian bargain of technology. Technology giveth and technology taketh away. This is a useful strategy, of course, that recognizes technological advance has always had a cost, and a substantial one at that. The contestations of perspectives ranges from conceptualizing AI as a means to advance scientific research and innovation, for instance, and also as a tyrannical and ethically malleable piece of technology that is never merely used, but one that shapes society, indeed shapes society, therefore has massive consequences in realms of politics and culture, social norms, ethics, morality, education, and intelligence. Technological advance and elaboration have always been determinative in education and pedagogical practice and priorities, and the accelerated pace of technological change outpaces our abilities to assess it, let alone make policies for it. Metaphorically speaking, the ground is shifting as we stand on it, and herein lies the formidable challenge for higher education. As a vast industrial robotization transforms societies around the globe, from culture to business, from industrial strategy to everyday social life, from the operations of government to the operations of domestic space, how do we conceptualize the project, the vision, the mission of higher education? The dilemma faced is how we revise, but more comprehensively, invent and reinvent teaching and learning around AI that go beyond lists of prohibitions and recognize the imperative of AI literacy and ethicality amongst our students. In March 2023, as I'm sure you are all aware, more than 1,000 tech industry leaders AI researchers and other AI technology experts signed an open letter that was published by the Future of Life Institute. They called for a 6-month pause on the development of AI systems. This push for a moratorium arose from compelling factors of an existential nature. In particular, the letter offered a warning of social, economic, and political disruption, even crisis, as AI enabled the acceleration of misinformation and elaborated the long-established threat of automation and the replacement of humans across every sector in society: jobs and labor force, business and finance, education, governance, law, and countless other institutions. The advocacy for slowness or for even a moratorium in AI and its application is forcefully resonant in education in Canada, elsewhere certainly, but certainly in this country. And here, Action Research British Columbia, my home province, an open source platform for advocacy around progressive causes, recently disseminated a petition for signatures of educators to support and mobilize a pause in AI in all provincial K-12 and post-secondary schools. The petition demands that students not use generative AI in the classroom, nor use generative AI for homework. With reference to major studies in the fields of education and psychology, the petition details the harms, quote, harms, unquote, of AI use in schools, including harms to learning, relationships, emotional development, and mental health. This campaign was linked to a global organization, the influential Pause AI, which engages in action to oppose unrestrained adoption of AI. Pause AI is vigorously critical of AI's acceleration and insinuation into and restructuring of societal systems and institutions. Pause AI is part of an ongoing, expanding, and organized intervention that defines the risks and threats posed by AI. Such threats include misinformation, polarization, and the threat to democracy, deepfakes and scams, automated biases and discrimination, joblessness, economic inequities, isolation, digital addiction, mental health, surveillance, and so on. The cause for pause is pervasive and impelling, and calls for action are irrefutably evidence-based and philosophically sound, and driven by ethical and moral motivations. But the train of AI has left the station, to use an idiom, common idiom. But the contestations over AI are motivated by a concern that this does not become a runaway train. The idea of robotization of society identifies a radical and decisive transformation from industrial automation itself, a profound epochal social transformation, to the broad integration of robotics in society. The ethical risks of robotization are legion in number and clearly are the source of a deep and pervasive anxiety. As our daily interactions with institutions of government, business, education, medicine, law, entertainment, and much more, these are increasingly interactions with trained bots, the more pointed and vigorous the debates around AI have become. For our students, even as they use AI as an extraordinarily resourceful academic servant, the complexity of AI compounds an already fraught and contingent world. This is a world beset with rancor, to be sure, a world in which the young see their futures predetermined, sometimes even foreclosed in the incendiary state of the globe, a world in which technological advance creates anxiety, in which the financial futures of the young looks like a cul-de-sac, as AI is transformative and functional and foundational in defining these futures. As widely reported, during graduation week in the US, the emissaries of the nation's elite made their appearances as invited commencement speakers at graduation ceremonies on campuses across the country. As Highwell notes, quote, "The problem this year, however, is that the news of the day is artificial intelligence, and students just don't want to hear it," unquote. It probably isn't the kind of viral attention she thought she might reserve, but on May 8th, Gloria Caulfield, a real estate executive and commencement speaker at the University of Central Florida, was resoundingly booed by students as she offered a celebratory and effusively optimistic declaration of the beneficence of AI and its importance as the, quote, next industrial revolution, unquote. In a similar vein, in May, Nashville-based Big Machine Records CEO Scott Borchetta gave a commencement speech to graduates in Middle Tennessee State University and was booed as he spoke glowingly of AI with a particular emphasis on the fact that AI was, quote, writing production at this very moment, unquote. In
Okay,
response, yep,
this is 50 minutes have passed, and you have 5 minutes more.
yeah, I'm coming to the conclusion. 15 minutes, did you say?
Yes, you have 5 minutes,
Thank
five more
you.
minutes.
Thank you for the time warning. The former CEO of Google, also Eric Schmidt, had a similar reception. He did utter a truth when he noted that this is a fear, that this is a fear, there is fear rather in your generation. If AI bots are coming and members of Gen Z appear not to be joining the pep rally unreservedly, then we can see that amongst youth there is a prevailing skepticism around AI's effects and outcomes and anxiety about AI's negative impacts, especially automation and diminishing job prospects. The disgruntled students were understandably unreceptive to this kind of boosterism. In conclusion, undeniably, young minds are fearful of and challenged by the future of AI ubiquity and its determinative power. Numerous studies and critical analyses have established this unsettled relationship between AI and the young. And two recent Gallup polls and a Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics surveys demonstrate with complete data that young adults believe that AI will reduce their opportunities in terms of job security and diminish meaning of their careers. Our students are deeply anxious about AI-driven futures, automated societies, about massive technological and economic shifts, joblessness, and so on. The prevailing state of uncertainty around AI needs to be addressed with a critical understanding of the complex milieu of digital life and culture, a milieu of digital distraction and compulsion, compounded by a perpetually emerging AI. Our young students are in the process of working this out, obviously, and our institutions are scrambling, I think, certainly amongst faculty to save the professoriate, for example, especially, clambering over seismically shifting ground to save critical thinking. That our students are expected to be AI fluent in their career fields that they pursue is not debatable. How they learn to develop such fluency and apply AI strategically and productively, critically and ethically is the challenge of enormous consequences for higher learning, its institutions, its policies, and its performance. We need, besides the inevitable litany of rules and prohibitions that institutions often use in terms of trying to control AI, such policies must proceed from a statement of educational philosophy, of mission, of responsibilities for students, instructors, and administrations. The urgencies and priorities include pedagogies toward the multidisciplinary development of AI fluency, criticality, practices, all toward the achievement of ethicality. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Very